Hello, good evening, and welcome to Solomon's Temple right here on this Thursday, very cold Thursday evening here in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in every day, I would say. Some of you guys have visited our YouTube channel. I want to say thank you so much. There are so many videos on our YouTube channels. If you go to Solomon's Temple, the YouTube channel, or you follow any of our videos online, then you can access a lot of other exclusive videos, interviews that have to do with the big questions that we always ask here. Where is God in the midst of a story? So we conduct interviews, we look at issues, and we look at the God factor in the issue. And we ask ourselves the hard questions, and we try to make sure that we probe things. That's what we do, because that's what the Bereans in the Bible, if you check through, they listen to Apostle Paul and they go back and they search scriptures to make sure that what they had from Apostle Paul is right there in scriptures. So for us here, we try to ask the hard questions. It may be painful, it might be annoying, it may get you angry, it might be investigative, but that's what we do right here because we're supposed to do that. Well, I first want to start with a quote about child abuse. The quote says, "The bruises will heal, but the scars will last a lifetime." The bruises will heal, but the scars will last a lifetime. Isn't that amazing? When you abuse a child, the bruises will heal, and bruises are what we see externally, but the scars, the remnant of the bruises will remain there, and it will last a lifetime. So in other words, when you abuse a child abuse is basically you are sentencing a child to a lifetime in pain. You are sending a child to a lifetime of memories that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. And today we're going to be talking about issues like that. We're going to be talking about issues of abuse, and we're going to be zooming in on the issue of a pastor who abuses children. A pastor who abuses children. For a lot of us charismatics and Pentecostals, we think abuse, when it comes to abuses that are being done in church, we zoom into the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church has a reputation for that we all know. But is it only the Catholic Church who is doing that? Because right here in KwaZulu-Natal, in South Africa, a province in South Africa, quite a bit of that does happen. And my guest this evening is going to help us to discuss that as he joins me. His name is Dumi Mbona. Dumi is originally from KZN, grew up in KZN, but is based in Johannesburg right now. And he had some encounter and stories to share, from sexual harassment from a pastor that he experienced to also experiencing other kids being sexually abused. Dumi, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Solomon, for having me.
So let's start with you, even before we get to the questions around, what you had witnessed and what had happened to you and what you had witnessed. When it comes to this said pastor who was sexually, abusing, and from what we hear, he is actually currently still pastoring a church. Now, let's start with you, just to get a background about who you are, just so we can establish the credibility of who you are and your story. From your mouth, you giving us the evidences. You grew up in KwaZulu-Natal. Tell us more about your upbringing.
Okay. Yes, I was raised in KZN, a bit all over the place, but originally from Underberg, which is just outside of Maritzburg. And then that's our homestead. But we also moved to Durban, in a township called Kwandengezi, just outside of, I think it would be 20 minutes away from Durban, the city. So I was raised there. From there we moved to Marianne Hill, And then from Marion Hill, I sort of like grew up in Pinetown, and then a little bit of Durban. Now I'm here in Johannesburg. So basically, I grew up as an abused child. And when I talk abused, I'm talking about severe abuse. So my mother and
What sort of
father
abuse are we
separated.
talking about? Physical abuse, verbal abuse,
Phys-
emotional abuse?
all of those:
Okay.
physical, emotional, you name it. So when my mother and father separated, I think it was somewhere in the 80s. I was still a baby. And then in 19, I would say 1991, when my father abducted me from school. So I was staying with my mother. So one day I just, on my way to school, I think I must have been doing grade 2. And then, my class teacher calls me out, and there is my father. I hadn't seen him for a very long time. So then I was asked if I know this man. So I said, yes, I know him, is my father. And then they said, okay, go get your stuff. And that was the last time I saw my mother up until I was 16 years old. So my father took me with him to Pinetown. So he had moved from Gwandengezi Township to, Marion Hill. So he had moved, had his own family. So that's where the story began, the story of me being abused, let alone the fact that my father and mother had separated. My mother had to look after the three of us, my siblings. It was myself, my brother, and my sister. And now I'm taken from school at grade 2, without actually even saying goodbye to my mom, without saying goodbye to my friends, to anyone that I knew. So I was sort of like confused in between, because I was excited to see my father, whom I haven't seen for a very long time, but I was also, stuck, because now I'm having have to leave, and there's nothing that I can say. Now that my father is here and he's saying we're going to Durban, and I'm excited for going to Durban, but then so I'm stuck in that. So when I arrived, the reception was not as good from my new mom, my
So,
stepmother.
you have a stepmother, he remarried, and were there any other kids? You had siblings?
Yes. So they had two kids of their own. So my half brother, who's late, and my half sister, who's still around, and we are very close with her, which is a miracle, because her mother almost got me killed. But we are very close with my sister. So also she had two or three kids of her own just outside of their marriage, which then meant that I had to be inducted to this new setup at home with my father. So yeah, so I said the reception was not good from my stepmother. She didn't look very excited to have me. And so that was the beginning of every day of my life up until I ran away from home in 1996.
Just expatiate for me. Your dad took you out from school, and
Yes.
it seems like, I'm not sure if your mom was in agreement with that or not. And then he took you away to Pine Town. Now you got into a new environment, and there was a series of
Yes.
abuse. Expatiate some of the. I want you to be able to picture for me of some of the abuse and why he abused you. In what sort
Right.
of scenario? What did you do, or what made him? Was he an alcoholic? Was he had problems, or he had anger issues that he would abuse you emotionally, physically? I mean, being your dad.
Mm. All right. So I would say at first, my father was not abusive towards me. He had genuine love for me and for his children. So he genuinely loved us, even as much as he would beat us, almost half past dead, because we were very naughty as kids. But you'd see that there is a man that loves his kids. because afterwards he would do something nice for you. So when I came to stay with my stepmother and my father, so the abuse started being verbal. So I'm talking about comments about the color of my skin from my stepmother, who would say, umnyama, meaning you are too dark and you are ugly. Like those were everyday words. Like she would swear at me out of the blue, when she feels like swearing at someone, because I don't remember. Even though we were naughty as kids, I was very respectful, I was very responsible. I was almost the one that was doing all the chores, sort of like around the house. So I was very like responsible, respectful. But I found myself just being at the receiving end of all the nasty words that you could ever think of. I'm talking about vulgar at its core. Just by walking past the yard, she would scream, call me names, swear me by my mother. I was told not to call a stepmom, or in Zulu, mamncane. I was told to call her my mother because this is my new mom. She's not my stepmother, she's my mother. So when I would be asking for something, I would say, Mother, I need to ask for something. And she would say, never call me your mother. But then, when my father is here, I'm told that I need to call her mother. So she would say that I'm reminding her of my mother. I look like my mother and she hates me. So those were everyday words for a 8-year-old, 9-year-old. Um, then it grew from there to being very physical. So I would get beaten for nothing, really, Solomon, like for absolutely nothing. You'd get accused of having done something, but then and then that abuse would go from verbal to actually physical, being beaten. Um, so eventually, my father recognized it. I think it must have been around 1992 when my father recognized the abuse that I was receiving from my stepmother. Um, then he was planning to actually just get rid of her, and that's where now the Muti thing came in. Because I don't know what happened, but I believe that some of the Muti was at play, because one Saturday my father just completely changed. Things changed. He became a yes man to this woman.
Okay, so
He
there was this sudden change in your dad that he totally flipped to the other side, instead,
Totally,
I'm protecting you. But was your
yes.
father? Does he have any sort of affiliation to being a Christian? What sort of
No.
faith? And your stepmother, was she a Christian or she was into
So this
traditional
Yeah, so
belief?
that's the environment I grew up in. So my father was a traditional healer, and later my stepmother joined him to become a sangoma. So that's the environment I grew up in.
Your
So
traditional healer.
my father was a traditional healer.
Okay, and then your mother now also joined him.
Also, my stepmother joined in to become
Okay.
to be practicing together. So
So that,
the
that Saturday, tell me about that Saturday. You were talking about that Saturday that your dad was flipped, and for you, this was
yeah.
this was like witchcraft in action, and finally got your dad, and he became somebody
Absolutely.
else.
So this Saturday, my dad did not return from work on a Friday because he was still working as a bricklayer. So
Hmm.
he did not return from work on Friday. And my stepmother knew and suspected when I had met some of the women that my father was busy with, and they were very kind to me and they were very nice to me. And my stepmother quickly realized that, things about to change. And so I remember, I always say that God shows me stuff that maybe I don't know if I should be seeing the stuff. But I remember she woke up very early on a Saturday with her friend to actually go and get stuff from another traditional healer who lived just not far away from our house. Funny enough, that traditional healer is the one that inducted my stepmother into being a sangoma. So that Saturday, when my father came back from work, this this lady, my stepmother, cooked my father's special, like what my father loved as a meal, which were pieces of chicken and rice, which we didn't, have all the time. So that Saturday evening, when my father came back, my stepmother did not fight with him, did not say anything to him, but instead cooked him a meal, and his favorite meal. So from that Saturday, that's the day I last had a father who loved me. Because from that Saturday, I had somebody that didn't care. I had somebody that joined in to the abuse that was happening, and he came in with a stronger hand. And it was now, every time, Solomon, you would I think when my stepmother, start beating and start abusing and start calling names, now she was bold enough to actually do those things in front of my father, and it would become a joke in the house. Like, oh no, don't be so upset. She's just joking. When she just called me, she just swore at me by using my mother, for no reason. But my father would just laugh and say, well, that's what happened when someone loves you. They just swear at you like that, you
Mm,
know. And then the
mm.
next thing, you'd get beaten up for, you'd get accused of doing something. So here's the thing: this stepmother had a son who almost the same age as me. The guy was very naughty. Um, my stepbrother was very naughty. We were very close with him, but he was very naughty. Like he's the one that was stealing stuff. Like he was on another level. But I would get beaten up for anything that goes missing. When it comes to dishing out food, one plate would be quite packed, another plate would be very small. So I knew which one was mine,
So you
and then
experienced all of that, and then your dad came in. Have your dad, the physical abuse that your dad gave you? What sort of physical abuse? Beatings, and was it out of
yeah.
hand?
So eventually, just to move the story, so the beating was an everyday thing at home. Using hands, using I don't know what's happening. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. My
Mm.
phone, I think my phone is losing a little bit of light. So what happened is my father was heavy-handed. He would beat us up, either using a stick, but eventually, um, it went on to become more aggressive as I grew up. So I remember, the lady that we were renting at her house. She's the one, a gogo. She's actually the one that introduced me to church, to something called church. I remember that she would shout at my father, because she would say, "There's only one child in your house that is always crying. There's only one child in your house that is always in tears and that is always being beaten up by your wife. And what's this?" And this lady, well, my father was quite feared in terms of like around the community where we grew up. So this woman, her name is Goku Mandlovu. She's late now. She would call me into her house and bake me banana bread, and just to comfort me. Straight after I've been beaten to pulp at home, she would quickly call me, wipe my tears, and I would just, continue just crying in a most incredible way. But she would just bake me the banana bread, and she was there for me. Eventually, she requested. I remember her going to my father and saying, "I know that you don't like Christianity, you don't like God, you don't like anything about Jesus. May you borrow me this boy, to come with me to church?" I beg you, if there's one thing that you could do for me. Miraculously, my father agreed to let me go to church, but on very strict sort of like measures. And so that is how I was introduced to a faith mission in Marian Hill.
So
And this,
your home is not the kind of home where there was any element of Christianity, because
no,
obviously your dad is a traditional healer, and now you have
yeah,
to stay with him. Your stepmom became a
yeah,
sango.
yes.
So for you, Christianity was very alien. It wasn't something that, you know,
We, yeah,
and then you go
yes.
ahead, go ahead.
I'm saying we come from a big family. I know that I'm using Mbona as my surname. That's my mother's surname.
Hmm.
My father's surname is Mbanjo, which is a huge sort of like
Clan.
family
Yeah.
connected. Yes, huge clan in Underbeck. So my upbringing in Underbeck had no element of Christianity in it. I would say the only time I got introduced to anything, I would say Jesus introduced himself to me when I was small. I think I must have been doing grade, because I had to come back and do grade 2 here in Durban after being, abducted by my father. So I was doing grade 2 and I was on my way to school at the time. And then I had this feeling, this wonderful feeling. But, I started laughing because this thing was tickling me all over the place. And I had an incredible joy that I still remember, and I can still, like, even today, sort of like remember what it felt like at the time. It was such a comforting joy and an amazing joy. So at that time, and I remember it's on stage, I had a dream at night. Remember that Christianity it's nothing for me. Like I've never heard of it. It's something that I don't even know about. At
Hmm.
some stage at night, I had this dream of the cross. The cross was so clear, and I remember being at such peace. Now that peace was quite foreign to me at the time because I was under a severe abuse. And at night, I see this wonderful cross. It was clear in the sky, and it gave me so much peace. And then later on, I got introduced to Gokman, who then takes me to church. Then that's when this thing called Christianity was introduced to me.
Now, when you step into church, for you, um, what were your first understanding of who Jesus is, who God is, compared to where you came from? You came from a very deep traditional belief,
Yeah,
ancestral, whatever, all cooked up. It was all
yeah.
around you. But now you've been introduced to Jesus. Did that give you a sense of freedom from the abuse, from the confinement that you had? How did you process that?
Solomon, to be quite honest with you, the first few, I would say, months being involved with church, for me, anything about God went from this ear to the other ear. I was just so happy to be outside of the environment of abuse and being happy for a change and being with people that laugh a lot and smile a lot, and with people that seem to be valuing me as a child at that
Hmm.
time. So anything about Jesus for me was even when I was at church, but because I remember that Gokmandlovu took me to one of the camps. I thought for me that was the greatest time of my life. We slept at the school and just being away, from the situation at home. But I don't remember me making anything big of Jesus or God at that age. No.
Hmm. So now you're going to church, and you're still with your parents,
Yeah.
your dad and your stepmother. Uh, but now, did that change you? Did going to church change you in any way? Your being at home and being in that kind of environment of abuse, and what did you start to experience? Because I mean, on the flip side, you're running away from one sort of abuse at home, and then you're coming
Mm.
to church, and then you faced another sort of like abuse and sexual harassment that you experienced in the hands of a pastor?
So here's a great a moment of my life when Gok Mandlovu saw what I was going through. She sat me down one day and she prophesied over my life and said to me, Dumi, there's greater abuse that's going to come into your life. But what will happen in your life is that you will be found by a white family. You will never learn English from school. God will teach you English. And you will be found by a white family and you're going to stay with that family. Uh, I was like, okay, I wish that could happen, at that time. So for some reasons, Gokmandlov decided, we decided to move from her house. And then my father built his house just outside of Gokmandlov's yard, which means now he's independent. So I kind of like stopped from going to church because I didn't see Gokmandlovu a lot. And then the abuse was so severe at some stage that I decided, okay, let me go and let me go to my pastor. I know where they stay. It so happened that he shares the same surname as me, which is Mbanjwa. So he's also in Mbanjwa. So I was like, let me go there and ask for prayer. And it must have been around 6 p.m. I still remember it was quite late because I had just been beaten up. And I went to the pastor's house. It was quite a distance to walk as a child, and they were all amazed because they were just. I got in there; they were just dishing out for supper, and they were all amazed to see this little boy just walking in. I think I must have been about 11 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So I walk in and I said to the pastor, can I please ask you to pray for me because this is what's happening at home. I'm being abused. My father is beating me up, and it's been going on for too long. I just needed to stop. Please ask God, as a pastor, ask God on my behalf and ask Him to make it stop because it's going on and I don't know when it's gonna end. So anyway, they dish up for me as well. So we finish eating, we pray. They prayed for me, and then there was a suggestion that the pastor come back with me to actually speak to my father. So on our way back, and I remember it was a bit dark at the time, and well, not too dark because I remember the moon was out, so it was
Okay.
like I remember looking up. It was a beautiful night.
So you were
Um,
walking back.
we were walking back, yes. So we got to a space where it was a very dodgy place where he decided to stop and asked me if I needed to get out of my abusive situation. So I said yes, I'd like for it to stop. Then Solomon, he suggested that there are a group of men, of guys that can pay me a lot of money just to touch me on my thighs. And as he was saying that, Solomon, I remember, because he was quite tall, he's tall and big. I remember looking up to him at his face, and I just, in my mind, this man changed from being a pastor to being something else, a monster,
Do
right
you,
there
do you
when he
think he
suggested
was
that.
trying to pimp you, or he was just trying to give you that option just so he could abuse you? Because he's saying, look, hey, he knew you were being abused at home,
Mm,
and as a
mm,
child who is like 11, you want to get away from it.
yeah,
You want to get out of that environment. You went to church to be prayed for, to be supported. They prayed
yeah,
for you, but then now the same person that just prayed for you now is
yeah,
telling you, look, you can make a lot of money,
yeah,
because there are men who, if you allow this man to touch you from
yeah.
your tithes, whatever, then you're going to
Mm.
make a lot of money. You know, do you think he was trying to pimp you? Do you think he's also a pimp, or it was just a case of trying to see what you were thinking, just so he
Mm.
could, now sexually start to abuse you and then give you money or whatever?
To be quite honest, I never thought much about what he was trying to do. I mean, even this day, I was because at the time it turned my world upside down. To be quite honest, because It was at night. It's just me and this guy, and we're standing in a dodgy place. Not only now, Solomon, is he asking me to go with him to this group of men, he also requests on the spot if he could touch me on my thighs.
Okay, so he asked you to touch him on his thigh. I mean, this
Yes,
is like a big guy, you said. So just try to paint the
he's
picture.
a big guy. He's
So
tall
tall
as
and
well.
big. And he's been a
Yes,
pastor in that community for, I mean, everybody knows him, isn't it?
everyone knows him. He's well known. So the guy, growing up abused, you learn to lie as a child. So I don't know. I can't remember the lie I told him so that he could not touch me. I would say it was just by God's grace that he didn't force, because I don't understand why he didn't sort of like just force. Because I mean, I'm a kid who doesn't have a home. I'm abused, and we're standing in a very dodgy place. And when he requested, I can't remember what I said to him, but I promised him that I made sure that I give him my word and my assurance that I'm going to meet him tomorrow to go to these people. So I said, well, I think I said to him, I'd rather just wait for tomorrow, and we're going to meet tomorrow. And, I need to make this money, and I need to get out of the house. So I think he let me go. And he then says that he's not going to go into my house because my father could get violent, and even towards him, he could get more aggressive towards him. But all he could do for me is to actually introduce me to men so that I can make money. So I then
We have to understand this, because a lot of people sometimes they get confused. If an adult would ask for sex, are you there? I think we just lost
yes,
you.
I am here. I don't know what happened.
If
Okay.
an adult asks for sex from a young boy as young as 11, the fact that he asks you for sex in itself is criminal, because that is sexual harassment.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing when a man asks a woman for sex, a woman that you're not in a relationship with, a woman that is married, a woman that you don't have any sort of affiliation with. That in itself is sexual harassment. So we have to get these legalities right, because sometimes we just push it and think, no, it's nothing. But that is criminal in itself.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
are not a prostitute. You are not an adult. You are a
Yeah.
child. Even if you're a prostitute, well, there are rules that govern this. And I mean, I don't even want to begin to get to the place of saying, this is a man of God. This is a man of the cloth. The society respects, that people respect. And I know in like KZN, I mean, pastors are in communities like that. They are really they're really well respected,
Absolutely.
they listen to them quite a lot and all that. And he did that to you, wanted you to touch him, wanted to take you and pimp you or whatever. But then you found your way around it. But that led you into a lot of other things. Like, I mean, I know you joined a gang, you ran away from home, you lived on the streets, and you also witness again this man offering you other opportunities, and you witness him sexually harassing other boys, not just one boy, but a lot of other boys. But what we're going to do now is we're just going to take a short break. When we come back, you're just going to continue the story. We're going to now move to the church and what you'd experience in the church, and the sexual abuse, and the boys that he will tell them to undress themselves and jump into bed with him. I know you told me about that. And also your life on the street as a street kid, and also you're getting involved in gangs, and how that today, how you've been transformed to be able to be who you are today.
Absolutely.
Welcome back from the break. If you're just joining us for the very first time, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Solomon Izang Ashams, as you can see right there. This is Solomon's Temple. In Solomon's Temple, we get to look at God in every issue because sometimes, we don't just look at God when we're in church. We have this perspective when we go to church, that's where God lives, that's where God should be. No, from your being at home to your issues, to families, to your finances, to your office, where is God right there? And that's what we try to do here. And we deal with the very big issues. And today we're talking about sexual abuse of boys. And we're talking to my guest here, who is Dumi Mbona, who has been, sexually harassed and seen other kids being sexually abused by a pastor. And he also was abused quite a lot of time from home, where his dad was a traditional doctor, native doctor, and his stepmother that he spent time with was a sangoma. So there's that whole concoction of that reality as a youngster that hit him, and going to church looking for a safe haven. The church and the pastor in itself, this pastor now began to pray over him, and he has prayed over a whole lot of kids. So that's who we're talking to tonight. But before we get into the fact of and the merits of this pastor who sexually harassed you for the first time, but there's a lot more that happened, and also sexually abused quite a lot of boys that you had witnessed, telling them to strip, and then in a camp, and they jump into his bed and making fun of it and all that kind of stuff. Innocent young kids, for that matter, jumping into bed with that. En route to those experiences, you found yourself in the streets. Tell me about your street life, how you got in the streets, and how you joined a gang.
So Christmas days were always the worst days for me because it just seemingly that the abuse would actually just go even higher up. So at some stage, my father went to jail, came back from jail. While he was away in jail, he then came back and he didn't find me home because my stepmother had just beaten me and chased me away from home. He
Where did your
went and
dad go to
collected.
jail?
I think it was related to some livestock that was stolen, and he sort of like kept it in his house. So he was counted as somebody that was working with the
Accomplice.
thieves.
Yeah.
Yes. So he went to jail for that, but he stayed, I think he might have stayed like a month or so. When he came back, he didn't find me home because my stepmother had beaten me up. I mean, at some stage, Solomon, because I started drinking even at that time, and I remember at some stage my stepmother beating me up, and I started carrying like weapons even at school.
How old were you?
Um, sure, 11, 12.
Okay. So at the age of
Um,
12, you started abusing alcohol, and also, in trying to
yes.
protect yourself, you were carrying weapons with you.
Yeah, I started carrying weapons, and at some stage, I remember my stepmother beating me, and I was looking for my weapon, and I didn't find it because I just wanted to stab her to death at that time. And afterwards, when she finished, I found it in a very simple place, and I was like, okay, I don't know why I didn't find it here, but I'm just been saved from spilling someone's blood. But the abuse went on. So eventually, my father came back, and I was not home. He got me back that day, Solomon. I remember because I ran to my uncle's house, and my late uncle, when when he came to get me from my uncle's house, he said to me, I must come home. And at that time, I started asking him, "Are you not gonna beat me up?" He said, "No, I'm not gonna beat you up. Come home." So I came home. At home, they were selling alcohol as well. So I remember walking into the house, and immediately my father locked the door behind me. Then I knew what was to come, but I didn't know it was going to come at such at the manner that it came, because he pushed me to the ground in front of people that were drinking. There was about 3, 4 people that were drinking in the same space that I was being beaten. At that moment, he was using a shambok. Um, he beat me up with the shambok. He got tired of beating me up with the shambok. He threw it away and he started like beating me up like with his fist now. All over my face. I was defenseless. Yeah.
I know the memories is painful, isn't it?
Yes.
Take your time.
So yeah. So the man decided that it was not enough that he's having a field day with my face. He decided to strangle me. Um, he decided to strangle me, twisting my neck. I remember the last memory of the people that were sitting there. I remember them running out of their house because they didn't want to witness murder. And they ran out of the house. He would take my leg and twist my leg. He just didn't know what to do with himself when it comes to me. Um, I remember him twisting my neck, and I ran out of breath. The same stepmother jumped up and said, "You are killing this child. Stop." He immediately stopped. Um, my face was, I couldn't see. I was a mess. He, then on that day, he sent me to the shops to say I must go show my face so that people can see what is done to me. I remember taking the money to go to the shops, and this the son of this lady, my half brother, that I said he was the same age as me, he was waiting for me by the gate. He said to me, "You're not going to the shops like this. I'm gonna go on your place." Um, I remember the young man vowing to make sure that he's gonna repay what they did to me on that day when he grows up. So my grandfather was called at a later stage. Okay, the next day, I was sort of like walking around with a face like that, and my father was having fun, wanting to show everyone what he's just done. That would start a series of many other abuse. So my grandfather was called, and he sort of like asked my father to stop, and he promised never to beat me up again. But at some stage, there was a situation where I came quite late from school, and I was told that my father is waiting for me. So I then on that day decided that I'm not gonna have another series. I'm not gonna have another situation where I might lose my life. So I decided to run away from home.
So
Hello.
that's when you got to the street. Is that the streets in Durban or the streets in Pietermaritzburg?
No, it's still in Marion Hill. So the type of streets, when you talk about streets, people think of street kids in town. For me, I was on the streets, but in the community. So
Okay.
so I was on the streets in the community.
How do you eat?
So I go to Solomon, I would visit some of the friends from school, but I would not ask them for food. I would hope that they dish out for me. When I don't find them, I would look for food. I'd look for anything that I can find to eat, including banana peels, old peels, orange peels, um, just to curb the hunger. And I remember at some stage, I was just loitering all over the place, just looking for something to eat, especially during school holidays. Um, um, so it was at the time for me. I would find anything and everything that's sort of like look into the dustbin and look for something that's better, that's eatable. So we'd eat stuff like that.
And then you got
I would
involved in gangs.
So at some stage, I went to play football. I was playing soccer with other kids, and then this guy sees me, and I was quite good. He took a liking to me, and then he asked me to come and stay with him. Or he asked me, where do I come from? I told him my story. Then he told me, okay, from today, I'm like his brother. Whatever he eats, I will eat. And little did I know that I was being, um, taken into a gang. Um, these boys really loved me. I found protection with them. I remember at some stage when these boys saying, "Do you want us to revenge your pain?" Because at some stage my father would chase me around. Apparently, he had a gun. Before I got to that, I mean, I remember even putting a restriction. I mean, there's a police woman that used to deal with my case because I reported my father at some stage and had
Protection order.
what's this protection order. And then I stayed with the boys and I received protection from the gang, from those guys, and they showed me true love. They showed me a lot of stuff, and I was really 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 protected. And I mean, even today we still keep in touch. I mean, no one is involved in anything, but they truly truly protected me and showed me love, and till this day I call them my brothers. And then I wanted to come out of the situation because I mean we had some people. I mean, there were people getting killed, people that we knew getting killed, people getting arrested. And I remember one of the gang leaders telling me that you remember that you are not a gangster. He was straight with me. He said, you are here because you need help. So he barred me from smoking, which is just a God story for me. He never allowed me to take any drugs that I would come back and find guys smoking. He never allowed me. Yes, he allowed me to carry weapons. He allowed me to carry a lot of stuff. I mean, the story has so many details that I've left out. Even at some stage where there was a former MK person that was after me, sent by my stepmother, and these boys protected me from such a human being. Um, and so while I was at that situation of wanting to come out of the gang, I remember that at some stage I joined a church and I was a believer, so I was longing for that life again.
Yes, I was gonna ask
Um,
when, like, going back to church, as we bring this to a
yes,
close, I want us to concentrate in the next minutes, just concentrate on the issue of church, how you
yes,
finally came to have a relationship with Jesus. But before then, break down the same pastor and the church we're talking about here for you guys that are watching. We're talking about faith mission. If you know the church faith mission, it's a very kind of like old school Protestant church. It's been around for so many years, and you find it quite a lot in towns and villages across the country. So faith mission is the church that we're talking about. So I want us to concentrate now on this pastor. He had he had you had encountered him again. How did that go? And what did he try to get out of you? And break it for us, the abuse that you saw when you guys went to a camp with so many
mm,
boys, in the evening, in the night, where they would jump into his bed naked, and
mm,
it was almost like an okay thing to do, or he was just unapologetic about it?
Yeah, so at some stage, I rented a room um, in one of the uh, locations, and it so happened that there was a tent service, and I attended the tent service, and there he was preaching after so many years. So we reconnected. I said to myself not to judge, so I decided not to judge. At some stage, we went to a men's camp at someone's house, and I remember for like the camp was 5 days, and each day he would call one of the boys to actually come and join him in bed because all of us slept on mattresses on the floor. But he would actually demand any boy that is actually joining him to strip naked, to come to him proper naked, for 5 days. And I would say that's just about it to what I witnessed. Fortunately, I was not called to that situation, but yeah, I saw quite a lot of boys. So at some stage, this during a tent service, the pastor decided to stay behind, and it was quite late. And I lived closer to where the tent service was. So and then everyone is like, okay, Pastor, we need to go. Can we give you a lift? He was like, no, I'm gonna see where. He called me by my surname. He said he used to call me Mbandra. At that time, I think I must have been 15 years old. And he would say to me, so he said to me, I want to see where you stay. So fine, we went to the play to my place. We got there, we spoke, and then it was getting quite late. And so I asked him if it's not getting late. He said, no, he's going to sleep here. So now the only thing that I had was just a sleeping bag and a mattress, the one that you blow, a mattress that you blow to sleep in, but just only for one person. So it's like a camping gear. That's what I had to actually as my bedding. So I showed him my bedding. I said, this is my bedding. We can't both sleep here. He said to me, no, in Bible school, they used to share a sleeping bag. And I'm talking about a big, tall person here. Then at that time, I realized that this man is what is he trying to do? And at that time, I was quite adamant that no, you're not actually. I stopped from being a boy who's just with his pastor at that time. Now I became aggressive towards him, and I said to him, listen, you cannot sleep here. It's merely impossible. You cannot sleep we cannot share the sleeping bag. And then as I was being aggressive like that, he said to me, why are you being so aggressive? Why are you being so angry about it? I told him, no, it's not going to happen. So he said, let's pray. While he was praying, he was asking God to forgive me for being such aggressive and being bitter and unforgiving. By the time he said amen, I was by the door opening the door for him. I said, no, you need to go. You're not going to sleep here. I was very strong on it. So he got out. And then I decided to actually not just live with the story by myself. I decided to approach some men from the church to actually say, this guy has done this. It's not the first time he's doing it. That's when I got a revelation from one of the parents that were in that meeting, who said, actually, his son or her son did not survive like I did. The man actually went through to molest the boy, and there were quite a lot of stories that I was told were happening. So my story was not unique, was not the only story. And so that church decided to actually say, those people that I was sharing the story with, they said they're going to take it up. I wanted nothing to do with it. I just wanted to bring it to the light and say, this is what this man is trying to do. And from there, I just decided not to ever attend the church, not to ever meet this guy. And I just sort of like moved on. So I would say it also created a thing with me, especially when you put comparison between the white church and the black church, or the church in townships. for me, it's unease every time I'm gonna, think of actually going to a church in a township. I'm very uneasy at it.
Those memories are still there, and
Those
you
memories are still there of what could be going on.
yeah. So at the end of it, you discovered that, from leaders and older people in the church, that this is not unique to you. The fact that he
Yeah,
sexually harassed you and tried to molest you, it wasn't exclusive. He had actually molested other kids.
yeah,
Um,
it,
and I want to paint a picture a little bit of that, around the same day that you went on a camp with other kids. So he's at
yes,
his bed and you guys sleep on the floor. Is that it? And then he would ask some of the boys to undress and join
yeah,
him in his bed.
yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
I think for me, that's the only thing. I mean, it was like you said, pastors in KZN are revered. You can't say much about the man of God, and this man was married.
He was married.
And
Okay,
so,
that's
yes,
another thing.
he was
He
married.
married man with kids, obviously.
No, no, no. Not that I know of.
And
He
okay,
didn't have kids. Yes.
okay.
So when he was asking boys to undress, I think that was it. I mean, for me, I didn't even want to know what was happening under those, because you're still living under that condemnation of saying, no, don't judge, don't judge. And it's, you thinking something is happening, but actually it's just an innocent boys, sharing the bed with the pastor.
Hmm. And some of these boys, you know them personally, or have you spoken to any of these boys to share their experiences?
We never got to speak about it, but I saw some of them. They are no longer involved with church, and actually they went back to alcohol. And I think if followed and if given a chance to tell their story, you'd be horrified. And it wasn't just the boys only; it was girls. He was doing it on girls as well, to other girls in the church, and buying them clothes and for sexual say favors.
So we have a pastor who is married and also bisexual, and also he's a pedophile. He's a rapist. He's a molester
Yeah.
all together. And today, he is still there, still pastoring. I wonder what he had done and how many young people he had done this to. Over the years that he's been there. I think he's been a pastor for over 20 years now, technically.
Yeah.
Uh, so you can imagine, with uh, that kind of abuse, if he had not changed, which I doubt,
Mm.
though we pray and wish that everyone would change and be closer to God. But for you, the other boys that you've met there into alcohol and drug abuse and all that, but for you, what kept you going? And when was the time that you really realized that Jesus, is the only hope that you have? You've tried home disappointed you, your dad, you tried the church, even though the church is not supposed to be like that, but the
Mm.
experiences you got from the church is not a reflection of the church of God. It's a
Yeah.
reflection of an individual who was an abuser, who is a molester, who is a rapist. Unfortunately,
Mm.
but that as a child gives you a picture. When did you get to a place where Jesus, I trust you. I know you are the
Mm.
one that can save me, that can transform me, that can take my brokenness and really help my life through.
Um, well, I think we just ran out of. We are being load shed,
Look there,
but
okay.
anyway, yeah. so, so what happened? I think this is a miracle, and for me, it's what keeps me um, trusting God even this day. So, at some stage, I went back to the boys to stay with the boys. The gang.
Hmm.
I went full circle and came back to them. But then I joined this church in Pinetown called, I think today they called Redemption Church, Redemption Point Church. They were called Victory Faith at that time. And I was attending the church. It was not easy. I didn't know how to speak proper English. I was just from a township. There were not many black people in the church. But so I would go there once in a while. And then one day, the pastor calls an altar call to actually say, if there's anything that stops you from worshiping God, come to the front. So I was one of the people that came to the front. There were so many of us, and he
Mm.
called deacons at the time and to actually come and stand behind us and pray. So after the prayer, the gentleman that was standing behind me asked to speak to me. I didn't know the guy, so the guy said to me, God showed him that I struggle with transport to come to church, and which is what I struggled with. So for me, that was the turning point in my Christian life. This guy committed to be my transport to and from church. So here's a situation. I'm back with the gang. I'm back with the boys, but now I'm committed to church. Um, and so this guy committed himself. He would come to the location, get me, and then I got to share my story with him. He's the guy that gave me like sort of like proper as a job during school holidays. So I started earning some money that can actually take me far.
Mm.
Because I paid for my own school pretty much from grade 6 all the way to college. So, but at some stage, I was faced with a situation with some other boys in the township. I would say another gang that I sort of like got into a situation with them, and my life was under threat. This gentleman, um, little did I know that him and his family have decided to change their whole life to actually get a bigger place so that they can accommodate me. I didn't know at the time. So when I phoned him to say I'm in trouble, he came to the location to get me. And he told me from that day that they've prepared a place for me where I can stay with them. So I stayed with that family. It's a white family. I stayed with them for like 7 years. Now looking back at Gok Mandlovu's prophecy when I was a child, it came to pass.
Mm.
And I remember telling her that everything that you said was gonna happen, it happened. So ever since, Solomon, I've been staying. I stayed with them for 10 years, and up until I could actually land a job after matric. I didn't get to do anything post matric because it was all on me the whole time. So yeah, it's just been a start, like for me, it's just been me, myself, and I. After, especially
What do you
after
do
that
now?
family.
You're now based in Joburg. What do you do?
So right now I'm busy with an online schools magazine because I believe that everyone has a story to tell. Like I'm telling my story today, and I believe that in the church these stories are suppressed, and they're not being told because maybe they may tarnish the image of the church. So we're more worried about the image than the lives and the abuse that is happening. So I am at the moment I run a schools magazine where I want children to actually tell their stories, but more about success stories and just changing the narrative of an African child. Because I believe, Solomon, that I didn't go through what I went through just for fun. I believe that God has a greater plan for me. I still have not realized it because I like what you said in the beginning of the show to actually say that those scars remain with you. For me, what this
Mm.
whole thing has done is that it has created somebody that does not know where he belongs. Because I can't point into one childhood and say those are my childhood friends. This is how I grew up. This is where I grew up, and I don't have lifetime friends. I don't have so every time I start, and then something
Yeah.
happens, and then
Yeah.
it's just start, go, start again. There are many restarts in my life,
Yeah. So,
and it creates it.
some of the stories that you write, like what you do now. Where can people access some of these stories, or what you do? How can people follow on that?
Okay, it's I can give you the website. It's
Yes.
www dot tag my school. So tag, it's TAG my school one word .co.za.
Okay. Okay.
So that's where we tell stories. But at the moment, so it's just a full-on like schools magazine that since we don't have, I mean, schools and townships and rural areas don't have their own media, so we're trying to be that for them. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So, but now, finally, have you, in your course, I know you've received counseling and help and Christian counseling and everything. Are you in a good place now? Have you been able to heal? I know you cannot totally say you are healed with this kind of abuse. Are
Mm.
you, what sort of place are you currently in right now?
Sure. I would say I don't know if I'm in a good place, Solomon, because at some stage when you struggle and you go through life the way you do, you have many questions. I would say I've healed. I mean, there's been a lot of prayers, there's been a lot of things, but to be quite honest, Solomon, we carry these things. They happen to us, and that's the extent of damage that these pastors do, especially parents and these pastors. Because I mean, I ran from a home where I was abused to find a home to where I'm supposed to actually be comforted. And when things don't turn out that way, you tend to actually live with a lot of questions in your life, especially now I'm in my 30s and I have more questions than answers. And especially when you don't find the kind of breakthroughs that I'm looking for,
Mm,
where I mean, one of the things that has happened to me is that I don't have trust. I struggle with trust,
mm,
and so when so it feels like every time I'm in Joburg, and it feels like whenever you're trying to get involved in some things and with some people, it feels like you're just interfering with what people are doing, and you just don't want to bother people. So I'm at a place where, yeah, those things happened and I can't change them, and I don't know. I would say I've healed, except for this story, because I don't understand how can a father want to actually take the life of his son. And for me, that story, every time I tell it, it always gets to me. So I don't know if that's a sign of me not being healed. But recently I realized that, these things never leave you.
yeah.
They, no matter what, people say, let go and let God. And I still have to find that concept working for somebody.
All
Because
right.
as much as God is there, and I believe that God walks through the pain with us.
Mm,
And so the way that I deal with it is, God, it cannot be that I went through so much pain for just nothing.
mm,
And I really believe that it's for a purpose. And I really believe that it's for a greater purpose than I could ever play it. I mean, regardless of the situation right now, when life gets difficult, you just wanna call somebody. I don't have, Solomon. It's
mm,
very hard to have friends, and I can't go back to the boys. Okay, in as much as they're not in a gang anymore, but
mm.
they've showed me true love. They showed me they were there. They were the people that, for me, that's where I found honesty and reality, when people are being real with you and being honest with you and being there for you.
All right.
I find that in the church, we talk more about that. We do very less about it. But
All right.
those boys didn't talk much about it, they did more of it.
Yeah.
So
So
for
if
me,
you're a Christian and part of the church, if you want to reach out to Dumi, I mean, you can just check out his Facebook page. Reach out to him, and also if you want to support what he does, you can check www.tagmyschool.co.za. Some success stories there that he's written. Support what he does. Please just visit and just check it out and just encourage him. And there are other people, a few people that also sent messages of encouragement to you. There's one from Haki. She said, "Wow, Dumi, this is a sad story. At the tender age of 11, wow, heartbreaking. Some of the stuff that you shared." There is one from Fumane. She said, "I'm sorry, Jesus, you face Satan himself." And then there is Ginion Lamy who said, "I feel your pain. There's quite, there's one from Tamarin. She said, much love from the USA, brother. So this Tamarin is all the way from the States. She said, I pray that you heal completely. And yes, it is okay not to trust no man for your own good, because you never know these things. And she also actually made some point here, which I think is a relevant point. She said, this COVID season is a solemn, merciful moment given to all of us by God, our Father, to protect us from the so-called churches, aka anointed Shabins. I never heard of anointed Shabin before, but
Yeah.
but there you go. But for me, finally, I want to leave you with a scripture from Psalm 82, verse 3. It says, give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the rights of the afflicted and the destitute. Give justice to the weak. So it is God's idea of justice is we should give justice to the weak. So even when you feel justice is not given to you, He's a God of justice, and the weak and the fatherless. For me, technically now you are fatherless. I'm not sure you had any sort of relationship with your biological father or not, but just always have it in mind that God is a God of justice. He's always there, and He's going to give justice to the weak and the fatherless. There is a comment from Heather. She said, God bless you. You are definitely a blessing to the world, even in your loneliness. God's got your back. KK says, much grace to you, to me. And then we also have Mosuto saying, sorry, that's a painful experience. Be healed in Jesus' name. And finally, from Erastus Williams saying, keep the faith and seek professional counseling. Whenever you feel that you've been hammered, you feel like life is hitting you hard. Yes, I agree. It's time to really seek professional counseling. But to me, we've gone over our time, but I just want to say thank you so much. I will definitely keep in touch with you. And some of your success stories that you write, on your website, tagmyschools.co.za. If you want to share with me, then maybe some of these stories we can consider to feature them here. That would be good. And anything you're going through, just inbox me. You want to talk or whatever. Something that I do. So I want to make myself available for that. For you to do that. But I just want to say thank you so much again, and I hope that even in the season of COVID-19, I hope that God will continue to do and continue to push and push what He has started in your life, and because that's very important. There's a comment that just came from Sean that I felt I need to read it. He said, I'm puzzled by this young man's story. I keep asking God, what happened to the man that accounts and fear Him? We really need mentors like you, brother, because your scars could be a turning point of a soul. May the wonderful Lord keep and bless you. So I do hope that you are actually even spending time in counseling other people, other younger people. There's a lot of people who have been bruised, working with a lot of scars today. So once again, thank you so much, brother. I
thank you, Solomon.
Yeah, and I hope that we talk again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Thank you. You can check out this video online, Solomon's Temple. Please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Please, there are other great videos there, interviews like this. We just want to bring stories and issues of redemption, restoration, that is all about us. And I really want to thank you so much for joining us today. Tomorrow is Friday, and tomorrow we're going to have a wonderful time. Tomorrow I'm going to bring two Christian comedians, one Nigerian, one South African, and we're going to have some gospel artists from Kenya. So tomorrow we're doing it the African way. Every Friday we will take time to celebrate God through the arts, through music, through poetry, through comedy, whatever it takes. So tomorrow will be a chill time. So don't forget to join us tomorrow, 8 p.m. right here. Thank you so much. As we leave you, have a wonderful evening, and make sure you're warm. It's very cold here, especially if you're in Johannesburg. Thank you, and God bless.